Hello everyone. As you may not have heard, Microsoft has officially announced that they are completely changing the Xbox One's policies about that always online thing. Because, in case you've been living under a rock for like the past month, Xbox One's original policy was that it required a 24-hour online check-in, and if you could not authenticate online your console, then you would be unable to play games on your console. In all fairness, that is kind of extreme for a lot of gamers because some people might not have good internet connection or they live in an area that actually doesn't even have internet connection at all, and that would suck, and they wouldn't be able to play the Xbox One, and I completely understand that. But today, Microsoft announced that they're doing a complete 180 with that policy. Now they're going back to the way that the Xbox 360 is, where you put the disc in the console and you can play it whether you're online or offline. You can buy the games digitally, but you still can't share them with people. But if you have the disc, you can. And there's no longer that 24-hour online check-in. You can play the games whenever you want. And the console is also going to be region-free now. So you can just play games from any region whatsoever, wherever you travel around the world. It doesn't care. It's a cool new Xbox. But it really isn't. Because Microsoft, I feel, has just taken a major step backwards. Now, hear me out on this. I'm not completely for the 24-hour online check-in. I understand that it's got pretty big flaws with it, but there was a reason that Microsoft was doing it, because they also having a bunch of cool features that I feel like a lot of people just completely looked over, like being able to install the game onto the cloud and you won't need the game disc anymore. You could also have a family circle of like 10 friends that you could share your games that you downloaded or install with your disc. You could just share with your friends, up to 10 of them. Granted, only you could play and one friend can play the same game as you at a time, but it would get rid of the need of like, oh, let me lend you my disc, but make sure you return it, and then you have to worry like, will your friend actually give the disc back? You don't have to worry. He just goes onto your online account, he'll play when he signs off, you can be playing at the same time. It doesn't matter. It was such a great and new revolutionary way to share games with people. Maybe not revolutionary, because I'm sure it's done before, but it was a pretty big step forward from what the 360 is doing, and the Xbox One to me felt like actually next gen. Now with the new policy they just enacted, I feel like the Xbox One isn't quite next gen anymore. I feel like it's just an Xbox 360 that has slightly prettier graphics and a higher price point at this point. And that's kind of what I felt about the PS4 also. Like, yes, it was nice to be able to play like pre-owned games and you could just share them with your friends, but besides like a slight boost in like graphical power and like smoothness, the PS4 and the PS3 there wasn't that big of a jump. And now you might be saying like you could say that about any like leap from the console generations, but if you look from like Nintendo to Super Nintendo, Super Nintendo, Nintendo 64, like those are like pretty big leaps in like graphics. Even from like PlayStation to PlayStation 2, like that was a pretty big leap. If you look from Final Fantasy 9, which is on PlayStation, to Final Fantasy 10, there was the Final Fantasy X just looks so much better than Final Fantasy IX. But when you look at games that run on the 360 and then are running on the Xbox One, you really wouldn't see too much of a difference between like, alright, it looks a little smoother and I guess it looks a little more realistic, but it's not that big of a jump. God, I am getting off track. The point that I'm making this video is because I feel that Microsoft has taken too far of a step backwards. They've given too much to all the haters of the system. What they should have done was come up with a compromise between like having absolutely no authentication and mandatory 24-hour authentication. What they should have done was have that online authentication. Maybe not make it 24 hours. Maybe expand that time a little bit, but that's really not the point right now. That could change, doesn't matter. But what they should have done is, if you could not authenticate the console, then give the option that you can play the console in an offline mode, but it disables all the features that they initially had, like that family sharing plan, or, well, obviously, like having the games on the cloud. Like, you can still play the game disc online, but your friends won't be able to play the shared game if your console is in the offline mode. And since the console is now officially can always be played offline, it sounds like it's something that they could have done, and it might not have been that difficult. I feel like that's what they should have done, because it would still have that leap of like something next gen. Like, if you have the authentication, you don't need the disc to play the game anymore, you can share with your friends. But if you can't go offline, that's fine, you can just keep playing like your 360 does. And that would be, I feel, a good enough compromise that people would be excited about the system because you need to have all these cool new features, or just stick with the old way, and everyone would be happy. Plus, it would be a step above the PS4 because not only does it have the PS4's like can be online offline thing, but it also has that additional step of being able to share the games and all the other things that I repeated a bunch of times before that I'm not going to keep saying. Anyway, that's all the thoughts I have right now. I'm sure there's probably a loophole in the plan that I just mentioned that somebody's bound to mention. But feel free to leave comments down below, like what you think about what I'm saying, if you agree with me, if you disagree, if there is a loophole in what I said, please let me know, because I think I have thought of one, but I haven't thought it through too much, so I'll reply to your comments as best I can if you do post one, or if your comment's good enough, I might even make another video. I don't know. Time will see. But yeah, thanks all for watching, and I'll see you all later.